Welcome to episode 9 of True Untold Nightmares. I'm your host, Chris Moss, and today I got 3 true terrifying Dogman Encounter stories for you, plus a bonus story. I've been gone for almost 2 weeks now because last week here in California, we had a really bad heat wave. It was like, it got up to like 110, and so a couple neighborhoods experienced power outages because PG&E was trying to conserve power and all that crap. So my home was one of the places that experienced the power outage, and so I couldn't record. And then this week I caught a cold and nasal congestion, and I didn't want to record sounding all nasally. Hopefully I don't sound too bad right now. I'm much better. Also, by the way, don't hesitate to send in your stories. I love, reading about them, and I love retelling them. And also join the Facebook group. The link is down in the description below if you are on Facebook, because I've had a couple people, hit me up and tell me that, hey, I'm not on Facebook. I deleted my Facebook a long time ago, and they have no wishes to rejoin Facebook. So I rethought the whole making announcements only on the Facebook group. So I'll make announcements on the Facebook group first, and then once I record an episode, I will make the announcement on the episode. And the first announcement is that I'm going to be doing my first live stream next month in October. Don't have a date yet, but if you would like to come on, call in and tell your story on the live stream, go ahead and email me ahead of time. Or if you would like me to retell your story on the live stream, go ahead and email me that. So can't wait to meet you guys in real time. And and any questions you may have for me about the podcast or anything, I'm an open book. You can email me the question, you can Facebook message me the question, or you can leave the question down in the comments of the YouTube videos. Just put live stream question and then leave the question, and I will answer it once I go live in October. And one last thing, and then I'm gonna jump straight into the stories. I noticed on my YouTube videos, all my views, majority of my views are only for the Dogman episode. And that's funny, it's like I have a diversity of videos. I got ghosts, I got demons, I'm talking about Dogman, but it's like Dogman is the most popular video. And it seems like people are watching the Dogman video and then they just check out. It's like, oh yeah, ghosts, demons, whatever, but Dogman. And you know what? Honestly, I'm not complaining. I don't blame you. It seems like the past couple years, Dogman has become a thing. Because when I was little, the only cryptids and creatures that you would hear about consistently, you would hear about ghosts, you would hear about demons. Bigfoot was always talked about. Even a Loch Ness monster was always talked about. Chupacabra. Those were the ones when I was growing up that you would consistently hear about. But Dogman, I feel like if you did hear about Dogman in like the 90s, early 2000s, it was in a very tight circle. But I feel like the past couple years, this Dogman phenomena has like just jumped out of nowhere. I don't know if it's either the stories and stuff. I don't know if it's always been talked about, but nobody had the resources to create a book back then, or maybe because of social media, it's being more talked about now. But I don't know. But I just noticed that the Dogman video was getting the most love and attention. And hey, I'm all for it, but I'm not getting that many Dogman stories, to my surprise. It's probably because I'm still new, still building that trust with some people. But encourage people to send me their Dogman stories. The more stories I get, the more you guys will hear, and the more you guys will get content that you are excited to hear about. So let people know I'm here and encourage them to send me stories. The first Dogman Encounter story comes from Mike. It's not his real name, and he wishes to remain anonymous, so I gave him a fake name. Now, in 2020, Mike and his friends were going camping out in Green Ridge State Forest in Flintstone, Maryland. Now, as Mike was driving down the road, He had a friend in the passenger seat. Then he had two friends in the back. That he was driving towards their planned campsite. He was going about 45, 50 miles per hour in an SUV, something similar to like a Honda Pilot. And he was watching a wood line carefully to make sure that no deer jump out. And that's when he said he started to notice that a big dark shape was running next to his car in the wood line and keeping up. He doesn't know when exactly his friends noticed, but right after he noticed the shape, his friends started spitting out questions like, "What is that? How is it able to keep up? Is that a dog?" All at the same time. It was chaotic in a car, starting to get chaotic. Now, Mike was going 45, 50, but he said as soon as he sped up to around 75 miles per hour, this shape thing started to fall back a little bit. And he said that what happened next, him and his friends will never forget. This thing was now directly behind the car, and it was still keeping up at 75, 80 miles per hour. And it hits the back of his car twice. Now, at this point, his friends in the back can see this thing clear as day, and they're freaking out. But Mike can't see it fully yet because he's trying to speed up. He's trying to keep his eyes on the road, and he can only occasionally glance up in the rearview mirror to see what's attacking him. But he didn't have to worry about glancing up in the rearview mirror anymore because this thing on two legs moves up to his window and stares in directly at him. Mind you, this car is going 75, 80 miles per hour, if not a little bit more. He said this damn thing's head damn near took up the whole window, and it had to be at least 9 to 10 feet tall because it kind of had to, like, it had to kind of hunch over to make eye contact with him. He said it had the body of a bodybuilder with ears like a Nubis, a snout like a husky or German shepherd. Its hair or fur, he doesn't know what to call it, was like dark brownish. And it had hands, not paws, because it tried to open his door while it was running and while he was driving. And he mentioned that there was intelligence behind those eyes. He didn't say what color the eyes were or how big the eyes were, but when he made eye contact, he saw there was a thinking mind behind those eyes. And he said its teeth were, it was, the teeth were as long as our fingers. And then this thing, he said the freakiest thing of all, not that it itself isn't freaky, but the thing that sticks into his mind, it smiled at him, or it at least appeared to smile, kind of like how dogs, smile at us. He said it was like that. He thinks this thing was smiling at him. It was either a smile or a growl, but he's pretty confident that this damn thing smiled at him. And just as quickly as it came, right after it smiled, it ran back into the wood line. He never slowed down after that. Even after this thing left, he didn't know if it truly left or if it was toying with them, but he said he never slowed down. And they never went through with the camping trip. They basically went back home. And now to this day, he said his friends don't talk about it with other people, with other friends, with family. They only talked about it, amongst themselves. The people in that car that day are the only people they are willing to talk to about this incident. And he said that I am the first person that he's reached out to, but he doesn't think that his friends would ever be willing to reach out to anybody podcast, even if it's anonymous. They don't want it getting out. They don't want people to think they're crazy. Now, I added pictures of what Green Ridge State Forest looks like. I didn't add pictures of exactly where they were heading, but just general pictures. And I also posted put up some general pictures of a road that's similar to the road that they took. It's not the exact road, or at least I don't think it is, that they took on their way to their camping trip. But I'll put those pictures up in the videos so you guys have an idea of the area that they were in. And let me know what you thought about this encounter down in the comments below. I don't know what I would do in that situation. I can't even fathom or imagine myself in a situation like that, especially, with a creature that we've been told all of our lives don't exist. and a creature that 99.9% of the population has not witnessed or seen for themselves and never will. Or it could be 99.8% of the population will never see such creatures. But I don't know. Let me know your theories and thoughts down in the comments. Now, for this next encounter, the eyewitness wishes to remain completely anonymous. No fake names, no gender pronouns to even hint at who they could be, because they are part of law enforcement. They won't say what branch. They won't say, literally zero. The only information I have is that this happened in a small town and the story itself. That's it. But about 10 years ago, in a small town near Houston, Texas, the eyewitness said that they were walking their dog late one evening like they normally do. It's nothing out of the ordinary. They always walk their dog around this time, roughly about between 5:30, 6:30. Then all of a sudden, everything went silent. It was like the wind itself even stopped, and the eyewitness and their dog froze in place. At this point, the eyewitness develops a very strong sense of unease and fear, and their dog is fixated on a specific area in the wood line. And as the eyewitness looks where the dog is looking, they noticed a dog wolf-like creature standing behind a tree on two legs, holding a trunk with hands, not paws. The eyewitness goes on describing this thing by saying the head was the size, if not bigger, than a bear's head. The torso was very muscular. The legs looked like dog legs. It looked like it had a small mane around the neck area. There was less hair in the chest area, and the eyes looked human, like there was intelligence there. And this thing kept looking down at the dog and then back to the eyewitness like it was thinking, and the eyewitness didn't want to know what this thing could have been thinking. After what felt like 30 minutes to an hour, but it was really more like less than 10 minutes, this creature walks back deeper into the woods without making a sound, which the eyewitness said should have been impossible because this thing was huge. It should have been making every sound on its way back into the woods. Now, only once the eyewitness started to hear bugs chirping in the background again, and the eyewitness's dog looked back at them and took its attention away from that area, did the eyewitness rush home, finally move and rush home. It wasn't until the eyewitness was home did they notice that they wet themselves. Now, the eyewitness did mention that they're still struggling with this and that these things are not supposed to exist, which is what I said with the last story. Like, we're told that monsters don't exist. Werewolves don't exist, Bigfoot don't exist. But then you get older and you start going down rabbit holes and you find out that these damn creatures do exist. And when I was retelling this story, the sudden sense of fear and unease, the heavy sense of unease and fear just hitting them like that is what happened on my hiking trip, which I tell that story, I believe, in episode 3 or 4. Both of those episodes are Dogman episodes. They're the only two Dogman episodes. So if you haven't listened to either of those, which most people I think have listened to episode 3, I tell that story in one of those two episodes. So go check that out. Let me know what you guys think about this encounter down in the comments below, and be respectful. Just be mindful, which honestly, so far, everybody that's been commenting has been supportive and respectful. So a huge thank you to you guys for that. I don't even have to remind you guys, but that message is more for the newcomers. As more people start to listen to the videos and comment, please be respectful. But other people, the rest of you who have been commenting, thank you so much for keeping things peaceful and respectful. Now, this next encounter, the eyewitness wishes to remain anonymous because of the reaction she has received from family and friends when she has shared this story with them. So completely understandable. I get it. And she doesn't mind if I use gender pronouns. So a few years ago, near Dallas, Fort Worth, my hometown, around 12:30 in the morning, she was driving home from a party. Now, she said she wasn't intoxicated. She only had a few beers at the party. She didn't even have enough beers to fill a buzz. Now, it was a clear night and she was the only car on the road. before what happened next. She never heard of Dogman, and even if she did, she said that she wouldn't have believed the stories because she didn't believe in that type of stuff. But while she was driving down a wooded street, all of a sudden her headlights caught this huge, hairy creature walking across the road. At first, she thinks it's a homeless person with a huge coat on, but as she slows down to avoid hitting this thing, she gets a closer and clearer view of what it is she was really looking at, and it wasn't no damn person. She said this thing was massive as fuck. Its head looked like a huge wolf's head. Its torso was super muscular. Its leg, which it was standing only on two, looked like dog legs. Its hands, not paws, hands with claws on the end, moved up to its face to block the light from the headlights. And it took its time walking into the wood line like it could care less that she was there. Kind of like she was a nuisance and it was annoyed. She said that she felt like this thing knew she wasn't a threat. That's why it took its time walking back into the wood line. But I emailed, some follow-up questions like how tall did she think this dogman was? Was there a tail? The color of its fur, its arm, the length of its limbs. And she said it had to be between 8 to 10 feet tall. She doesn't remember seeing a tail. It might have had one, but she doesn't know. The fur was black. Its arms were lanky. So it was like longer. It reached past its knees. The arms were really long. And she also said that her family and friends don't believe her story. And they all think she was just really tired that night, and she thought about calling the cops. Like after she got home, she thought about calling the cops, but what do you say? Like once you call the cops after seeing some shit like that, what do you say to them? No crime was committed. What can you say? And from other stories I've heard on other podcasts, honestly, not talking to any type of law enforcement is the best thing, because if you go to park rangers, if you go to cops, it typically ends with the men in black knocking on your door. And for those of you who think the Men in Black is just some PG-13 movie, no, the Men in Black is a real government entity that I would recommend you looking up. Basically, they only approach people who have seen things, and they don't want those people to talk. And the things that the Men in Black can do, they can affect every aspect of your life. They could ruin your life if they wanted to. They can end your career with an email. They can freeze your bank accounts. The things I've heard that they've done to people and what they can do, it's scary. So I wouldn't run to law enforcement, because they are told to keep this under wraps. They know about these things, just to throw that out there. But yeah, she also mentioned that this incident happened about 7 miles away from where she lives. So she makes sure all her windows and doors are locked tight at night. And I don't blame her. But she mentioned before at the start of her story that she was a non-believer, but she's a believer now. And honestly, I love hearing stuff like that. When I hear about atheists and people who don't believe in such things having an encounter or witnessing something that makes them a believer, I don't know, it makes me feel good inside. It's kind of like, welcome to reality, the real reality. It's like, well, welcome to the team. But I'm more glad that with these stories that I've had the privilege to retell, that these stories did not end on a bad note, that they did not end as a deadly encounter. I'm glad that they didn't lose any friends. I'm glad they didn't lose any pets. I'm glad that they didn't die themselves, because each encounter, you don't know what's going to happen, and that's the scariest part. So please be careful when you go on hikes. Trust me, I love hiking too. Be careful when you're walking your dog, especially in the evening time, and especially if you live near a heavily wooded area. Be careful driving home late at night. You just never know what you're going to see on the road. And be careful going camping. Just anytime you're living in or near or passing through a heavily wooded area, please be aware of your surroundings and be careful and play it smart. Oh, and I read the emails, the stories exactly how they're typed out. I do not censor myself. I do not censor people who email me, stories with cuss words in it because I'm not for kids. This is not a channel for kids. There is also a parental advisory at the beginning of the video. If you never noticed it and you have kids listening to this, that's your fault. I have the parental advisory at the beginning, and I'm not a kids channel. People are dealing with, when people are sending me their stories and telling their stories, people are dealing with strong emotions. The things that they have witnessed are very traumatic. So I am not going to censor. I am not worrying about censoring myself because it's not like I'm cussing every 2 seconds. And I'm not going to censor, my guest, because when you're dealing with heavy emotions and you're reliving traumatic experiences, you're going to cuss. I'm not a channel. I'm not Disney Channel, so this is, if just, any future, let the future listeners know, if you're going to let your kids listen to this, there's going to be some cuss words dropped, some F bombs, and some, like, it's not going to get too crazy. I'm not Samuel L. Jackson, but I'm not going to censor myself or my guests. Just had to put that out there. Now, this bonus story is off topic, but I didn't receive any other ghost stories or similar stories to this story. So, and because I've been gone for damn near 2 weeks, I decided to, add this on as a bonus story. And this story was emailed to me from one of my listeners, Bobby Thomas. Shout out to Bobby. Matter of fact, shout out to everybody who emailed me their encounters and stories for this episode and past episodes. I truly, truly appreciate the support. You guys have no idea. But Bobby had a dream about her father shortly after he passed away. But Bobby's dad was actually her stepdad. She was 4 years old when he and her mom got together, and he raised Bobby as his own child and was a great dad. Now, Bobby says she didn't know her biological dad and that her stepdad was much older than her mom, and he was a very old school, tough but fair type of guy when it came to punishment. Unless she did something really, really bad, but then she said she got her ass busted, which, for those of you who don't know, that's a whooping. We grew up with whoopings. Go out and get me a switch, belts, getting whooped with belts, stuff like that. But anyway, but she said it only happened very few times, thank God. Now, by trade, her dad drove big trucks for the Postal Service pretty much his whole life. And when he turned 70 years old, he retired and went back to driving part-time, but he only drove locally. Now, he loved the road and it was in his blood to drive. But right before his 73rd birthday, he took time off to go see his sisters in Minnesota. They lived in Ohio. Now, Bobby was worried about him going up to Minnesota alone because of all the snow, but her sister reminded her of the many times that, he's been driving without any major accidents under his belt. Well, it wasn't long before they got a call from the dad's sister telling them that he was in the hospital after having a mild heart attack and that he should be released soon. Later that same day, she got a hold of her dad and asked when he's coming home. He was instructed to stay in Minnesota for about 2 weeks, so not to be on the road, but to go see his doctor as soon as he gets home. He did as he was told, and his doctor wants to meet him at the UC hospital to run some tests. Now here, her dad thinks he's going in for a checkup, and he ends up having emergency surgery on his heart. This was 2 days after his 73rd birthday. They did 3 separate stents. Now, the doctors, having had the dad's permission to go in the first time for the first stent, they did not, however, have permission to do a second stent. So they had to bring him up to get permission. He goes back under. The doc discovered a third blockage and again, don't have permission to put a third stent in. So they brought the dad up again to once again get permission. Now, his beneficiary, who should have made the second and third decisions, was not notified for whatever reason. And at this point, the doc starts calling family in, and the probability of her dad surviving this was low to none. Now, unfortunately, Bobby nor her sister had a vehicle at the time, So it wasn't until hours later that they finally got a ride, and their dad died on the table because they were too late. And this absolutely crushed Bobby. He died alone, thinking he was only getting a few standard tests. Now, the parking garage where his car was across the street from the hospital. It was a really long ass walk. So many things rolled around in her head about how the hell he seemed fine. We had a party for him just 2 days ago before this. She didn't get to say goodbye and tell him how much she loved him, what he meant to her. And it bothered her so much. She felt like her heart broke and her mind was cracking. It was maybe a couple weeks after she buried her dad that she had a dream about him. And not just a dream, but it felt really real, like more than a dream. It was in color. In her dream, the phone rings and it's her niece. All she got out was hello, then says, "Oh shit, hang on, I got another call," and clicks over. The line is quiet only for a second, and then she hears her dad say, "BJ, you there? I just want to call you to tell you I'm okay and I love you. I called to say goodbye." She said that in a dream, and for real, she was crying like a baby. She told him that she loves him too and that she misses him. He chuckled and said that, he misses her too. She told him I couldn't say goodbye because that was so final. So he chuckled again and says, "Okay, I'll see ya." And then the line starts to break up, get static coming through. She kept saying, "Dad, don't go yet. I never said goodbye." But she thinks that she said that to keep him on the line longer, but he was already gone. Her niece clicks back to her with a, "Okay, I'm back." I asked her through my tears and snot where dad went. She says, "Bobby, your dad died, don't you remember?" She said she woke up screaming, "I just talked to him, get him back on the phone," over and over. Her pillow was drenched in sweat and tears, but she felt he was right there with her. They may have spoken their last words, but she still talks to him in her mind and always feel the love that only a child and parent and grandparents can feel. And I just have to say, retelling that story, I'm not gonna lie, I had to stop. I had to stop recording towards the end because I ain't gonna lie, like it's your story got me emotional. Um, it's heartbreaking. I'm sorry about your dad. I'm sorry that things went the way it did, but the when you get it's heartbreaking, but it's beautiful, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, it's whew, that's a lot. It's like man, I don't. That story just leaves me speechless, and it's so similar to my story with my grandmother. So I know exactly how you feel. I never got to say goodbye to my grandmother, and if you haven't heard that story, I think it's I think it might be episode 1 or 2 where I tell the story of um yeah, 1 or 2 or 3. I think it's 1 or 2. Where I tell the story of like my grandmother sending me where I had a conversation with my grandmother who passed away like a month or two previously. So go search for that. That'll give you a reason to go back and listen to my videos. But thank you so much, Bobby, for sending me your story. Once again, I'm sorry about your dad. He sounded like an amazing man. And just your story is just, it's heartbreaking, but yet beautiful, for him to come back to you and send you that last message is just the wonders of this world and the afterlife. It amazes me. It truly does. But thank you guys for listening to this episode. Very good stories. Very good. Thank you. Thank everybody who sent me a story. Don't hesitate. Don't forget, encourage other people to send me their stories. That more stories equal more content. And I am so excited to meet you guys in the live stream in October. I'm gonna try to see what my schedule is like so I can finalize a date. But I can't wait to get all your questions and more stories and just to talk in real time. I can't wait for it. I got some other things planned for October, but I don't want to get ahead of myself. So thank you guys for listening. Thank you for the support. It means so much to me. And I will catch you guys in the next episode. Hopefully, it's not another 2 weeks before the next episode.